There we go. All right. The home of technology, but we run into all sorts of problems. Okay. So it's going to be tough to follow that. That was amazing. Take us through that journey of that. I think I saw my father in actually one of the pictures there, the bucket run. So, good afternoon. It's good to be back here in the birthplace of Linux. I actually was here in the August of 1991 back then. I like to say I had something to do with it, but I work at the Linux Foundation through the CNCF now. So it's just great to be back here for the first time in my life for a work event rather than a family event. So thanks for having me. Okay, as Kashif mentioned, my name is Daniel Krook. I lead developer experience at the CNCF, which means my team is responsible for maintainer satisfaction among the 200 projects we have hosted, and many more growing all the time. So I'm filling in for Chris today. He got stuck in, of course, the airline strike and some weather. He may be here later this evening. He may be around for the meetup tomorrow. Not quite sure what his plan is, but I'll try to cover this as best I can in his place. So he did this talk, a version of this talk at KubeCon EU in London last month. Kubernetes turned 10 last year, and there was a bunch of parties around the world hosted by many KCDs and many community groups around. Yes, and one here too as well. And so I hope you'll also have one of the C10F events. It's got a little tough with that hashtag, but that's the 10-year anniversary of the CNCF. So I'll take you through the last decade of the CNCF and bring some of Chris's thoughts on where it's going next. I'll try to capture those ideas as best I can. But the CNCF, it was founded as a neutral home for Kubernetes, but it was also designed to support a broader portfolio of other cloud-native projects in that ecosystem. First planning meetings happened exactly 10 years ago in May 2015, and it was announced at OSCON in 2015. I know Sarah was there as part of that event. And so the governance board and the technical oversight committee were formed. And so by the end of 2015, the CNCF was there. And some folks, of course, like Sarah, were there from the beginning and brought this all to life. So we wanted to give a thank you to that governing board, the TOC, and all the folks that have been involved in that community. So thank you so much for bringing it to where it is today, Sarah. All right, so speaking of today, we've now reached a contributor community of almost 250,000 developers worldwide, and that includes folks that are building Kubernetes as well as those other 200 projects. And in terms of velocity, Kubernetes appropriately trails only Linux as the highest velocity open source project in the world. So we'd love to see the community here continue that legacy of innovation. So behind those 200 projects, we also have about 2,000 maintainers that are volunteers or working for companies bringing those projects to life worldwide. And of course, many of those overall contributors come from the Nordic area and the vital community you have here, and Finland as well, of course. So as with those Kubernetes parties, we're going to rely on our organizers here to run with C10F, celebrating 10 years of Kubernetes. But if you run another meetup or another KCD around the world, you can grab a organizer kit, and we'd love to get pictures of the community in action throughout the year and pull together a collage for KubeCon North America later this year. So please do take part in that. Okay, so computing didn't start with Kubernetes. It builds on a legacy of compute that goes back into the last century, starting primarily with physical machines and proprietary technologies that started the innovation. And with the rise of open source around the time, the late 80s, the early 90s, a lot of the compute was defaulting to open source first. So as we saw an evolution in the early days of cloud, there were proprietary platforms, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and those were joined by OpenStack, Cloud Foundry, Docker, and of course, Kubernetes. So that was really the inception point of where we wanted to go with technology in the open source world. So I mentioned earlier, 2015 was the founding of CNCF. All the foundations were being laid and continues to evolve in terms of governance, but these were great roots to what the CNCF has begun and led to its success. And the following year, Kubernetes was accepted into the CNCF officially as a project, and it was joined by Prometheus shortly after that. Dan Kahn was hired on as the executive director and really did a great job in those early years to make it successful and bring together so many companies, so many developers. 2016 was also the first Cloud Native Day and the first CNCF run KubeCon in Seattle. I know Lucas was there. I've read that blog post. It's an inspiring story, kind of springboarding from that event over the last 10 years as well to what he's become. Okay, in 2017, we had our first KubeCon in Europe, run by the CNCF in Berlin. The big news there was that we had competing container runtime implementations coming together underneath one big umbrella, which really kind of fit the CNCF mantra of not picking winners, not providing reference architectures, but instead providing the governance and a home for open source projects to thrive. Later that year, there was a working group formed to understand what serverless technology could be, how that impacts containerized workloads. And separately, WebAssembly was born. So another way to containerize applications that's become more and more popular in recent years. So building on that serverless momentum, there was a boom in all sorts of frameworks running on top of Kubernetes. But Knative was probably the one that got the most traction at that point. And we saw serverless moving away from locking into Amazon Lambda as the way to develop it, more towards open runtimes, as well as the specification in Cloud Events and Knative. Knative, I think, is still incubating, but Cloud Events was recently made a graduating project just last year. In 2019, we saw with those microservices architectures, with so many moving pieces, that observability was a major need in the community. So two existing projects in the CNCF kind of came together to form the Open Telemetry project, and that's been providing a pluggable architecture for observability and to see what's going on within these complex distributed applications. Skipping ahead to 2021, eBPF, I can never say that, always provides a way to extend the kernel to the user space. So we saw a couple of their projects, Cilium, Falco, Pixie, emerge, originally focused on high-performance network monitoring, but now evolving into other use cases like security and observability. And on to 2023, Kubernetes has emerged in the post-GPT era as really the place that people are building and training their AI models, as well as deploying the inference to consume that AI. And fun fact, actually, OpenAI had keynoted at that first European KubeCon in 2017, in the early days of their development. So they were Kubernetes first right from the beginning, which is amazing. So that brings us to 2024. That was a big year for cloud native AI. There was a working group within the CNCF that published a white paper helping folks understand what that term means, what it means for your applications, how to take advantage of architectures in cloud native to deploy cloud native AI. Kubernetes also supported a dynamic resource allocation, which is a way to split resources such as GPUs for AI workloads. And other tools for supporting LLMs joined the CNCF as well. Okay, so that brings us to 2025, a whirlwind tour through the last 10 years of the CNCF. Kubernetes 1.3.3 was just released a short while ago, and it continues to include more features that support these huge, massive applications that are needed for training and for inference, as well as making them more resilient and easier to automate in many ways. And what we're really seeing, I think, was one of the big trends, is that you're seeing a lot of AI projects, people coming from that community over to cloud native more and more, to take advantage of the developer experience that's been there. You saw Ricardo's talk this morning, how you get data scientists to adopt Kubernetes by supporting what they need. So you see interesting projects like KitOps, which is leveraging the open container interface to deploy models, where that interface used to be only used for container images. So we're seeing interesting ways that AI is leveraging cloud native primitives. We're also seeing the extension of graduated projects like Dapper to include a new resource type called Task, and that provides a programming model for building workflows for AI agents. And again, it's really helping springboard AI by leveraging this foundation for these new applications. Okay, what's also becoming clearer this year, and we'll see how this ends toward the end of 2025, there's been a clear trend where open source models are starting to eclipse proprietary ones. There's still some disagreement in the community, for example, with the OSI trying to define what open source AI is. There's still lots to learn, lots of controversy there. But you watch that space because open source is really emerging as the key winner. Okay, so what does that all mean? So as with containerization and virtualization, those closed vendor solutions are going to gravitate towards open source. It's what developers want. It's where a lot of the existing experience already is. We'll probably see some abstractions that help manage the complexity of different application types. And the developer experience will continue to improve, hopefully, and improve the velocity of what sort of great applications you can build on Kubernetes and other CNCF projects. So I hope to see you at future events, maybe in China or Japan next month, India in August, or North America in the fall. And with that, I know we're all Eurovision fans here, and I'm very excited to see amazing things happening in May. So kiitos, tack.